The first thing I did after my rebirth was to orchestrate a chance encounter with my biological sister, to make her fall for me at first sight. In my previous life, after our wealthy parents found me, she did everything to protect the fake son who had taken my place. She fought me at every turn, spread rumors that I was an illegitimate child, and even arranged for people to bully me. Having spent a lifetime with her, I knew her tastes inside and out, so I carefully crafted the image of her perfect dream guy. Also, she could experience the crushing despair of discovering her newfound love was actually her brother. Just then, my target, Chloe Harrison, appeared. I slowly approached her and asked, "Excuse me, could you tell me how to get to the nearest library?" When Chloe and her best friends turned around, they all froze. Before them stood a strikingly handsome young man, his warm smile as refreshing as a spring breeze. The sheer visual impact sent Chloe's heart into a frenzy. Only when I asked for directions again did she snap out of her daze, instinctively pointing toward Oak Street. "It's that way." I gave her a polite smile, said, "Thank you," and turned to leave. Chloe stared blankly at my retreating figure, only snapping back to reality after I had completely disappeared from view. Her friends started buzzing next to her. In all my years, I have never seen a guy that handsome, so I guess those novels about 17-year-olds with incredible charisma aren't totally made up. He was definitely gorgeous. Every single feature was exactly her type. Chloe clenched her fists and took a deep breath. "Come on, we're going to Oak Street too." A sarcastic smile played on my lips. Everything was going according to plan. What does it feel like to fall in love at first sight with the very person you're supposed to despise? I couldn't wait to see the look on Chloe's face when she found out I was her long-lost brother. If I timed it right, the Harrison family should be discussing how to bring me home right about now. In my past life, to protect the status of their precious fake son, my father had me enter the family as an adopted child. I didn't learn the truth about my identity until much later. This time, however, getting me to come with them wouldn't be nearly so simple. Just as I predicted, the Harrisons sent someone for me early the next morning. It wasn't my parents, Richard and Eleanor, but their driver and a housekeeper named Maria. The moment she saw my face, she froze, but quickly composed herself and offered a practiced smile. "Hello, Mr. Ethan Harrison. We work for Mr. Richard Harrison, the head of Harrison Holdings. Here is our card." I didn't take the card. Instead, I crossed my arms, leaned against the wall, and sized her up. "And, what can I do for you?" Her face tightened at being ignored, a flicker of annoyance in her eyes. "Well, Mr. Harrison, I was wondering if you remember your biological father at all?" I raised an eyebrow. "What's that supposed to mean? Are you saying your boss is my real father?" Before I could finish, Maria cut me off with a frown. "Your biological father was our boss's savior." The Harrisons had concocted a ridiculous lie, claiming I was the son of a man who had saved Richard's life, and that they had never stopped searching for me. Such a noble and righteous family. Maria continued, "Our boss said that since your father has passed away, he will be your father from now on. He sent us to bring you to the Harrison estate, where he will formally adopt you. You will be a Harrison." As she finished, the driver, Mike, chimed in. "You must know the Harrisons are the wealthiest family in Seaview City. To be blunt, becoming our boss's son means you've hit the jackpot." They both wore expressions of superiority, as if they were granting me the favor of a lifetime. Seeing their condescending attitude, I let out a soft laugh. "I'm not in the habit of accepting random parents. Is there anything else? If not, please don't keep me from my breakfast. Thanks." With that, I stepped inside and shut the door in their faces. Just before it closed, I saw the looks of disbelief on their faces. A moment later, an angry voice came from outside. "Mr. Harrison, you need to think this through. This is the Harrison family. Do you have any idea what you're turning down?" Soon after, Maria and Mike returned to the Harrison estate and reported my response to my parents, just as Chloe happened to be there. When she heard I had refused their offer of adoption, she sneered. "If he doesn't want to come, then let him be. Just some street punk who thinks he's a big deal." As soon as Chloe finished, her mother, Eleanor, shot her a disapproving look. "Chloe, don't talk like that. You know." Chloe stood up impatiently, grabbing her car keys. "You don't need to lecture me. I have to go." She stormed out, and Eleanor sighed, turning to my father, Richard. "Darling, what are we going to do? He doesn't want to come." Richard Harrison, legs crossed as he read the paper, didn't seem concerned. "What's so difficult about it? He's just being cautious, probably thinks it's too good to be true. I'll go see him myself in a couple of days." Eleanor's expression finally relaxed. "You're right. We'll bring some luxury gifts next time, show him what real wealth looks like. He is our son, after all. We can't just let him waste away out there." I just hope he has some sense, knows what's good for him, and behaves when he gets here. After turning down Maria and Mike, I headed to the library on Oak Street. I knew exactly how much Chloe despised her real brother, and hearing that I'd rejected the family's offer would surely infuriate her. And when she's angry, she never stays home. I had seen the stunned admiration in her eyes that day. I was certain she was attracted to me. As the object of her infatuation, she was bound to come to Oak Street to try her luck. Just as I sat there, engrossed in a psychology book, I heard her delighted voice an hour later. "It's you." I had chosen a seat by the window, where the golden sunlight made me seem to glow. I looked up slightly to see Chloe striding purposefully toward me. I put on a look of mild confusion, and when she stood before me, beaming, I furrowed my brow. "And you are?" Seeing that I apparently didn't recognize her, a flicker of disappointment crossed her face, but it was quickly replaced by a bright smile. "Hey, you don't remember me? The other day, outside the cafe, you asked me for directions." I feigned a moment of realization and smiled politely. "Oh right, it's you. Thanks again for your help. It was my first time on Oak Street, and I'm terrible with GPS. I almost got completely lost." Chloe waved her hands dismissively. No problem at all." Then she pointed to the empty chair across from me. "Hey, is this seat taken?" I nodded and went back to my book. Chloe sat down, a little dejected that I wasn't paying her any attention, but just looking at my face made her heart race. Sensing her stare, I slowly lifted my head. My slightly upturned, almond-shaped eyes gave me a distinct and captivating look. Meeting my gaze, Chloe quickly collected herself. "So, I noticed you're reading a psychology book. Are you a psych major?" I shook my head, setting the book down. "No, it's just a hobby." Chloe nodded and pressed on. "So you're still a student?" I glanced at her. "Of course. High school or college?" "College, obviously." Her endless, pointless questions were starting to wear on me, and a hint of impatience crept into my voice. "Did you need something?" Sensing my shift in mood, Chloe's heart skipped a beat, and she quickly explained, "I was just making small talk. I didn't mean anything by it. I just wanted to get to know you a little." Honesty is always the best policy, so Chloe decided to lay her cards on the table. Her almond eyes looked at me earnestly. "To be honest, from the moment I saw you the other day, I've had a crush on you. I've been coming to Oak Street every day hoping to run into you again. Will you give me a chance?" Don't let her earnest act fool you. She was a total player, cycling through boyfriends at lightning speed. She hated guys who were pushovers. In her eyes, a man needed to have his own principles to be attractive. Otherwise, he was just boring and presented no challenge. After being her brother for so many years, I knew exactly how to play her. After she finished, I calmly closed my book and smiled. "Whether you pursue me or not is your decision. Why are you asking me for permission? Are you saying that if I say no, you'll just disappear? If that's the case, then I can give you a clear answer right now. No." My tone was soft, but my expression was firm, tinged with annoyance at being disturbed. I picked up my book and stood. "Is there anything else? If not, I'm going to go." Chloe was taken aback by my sudden shift in attitude. Seeing me about to leave, she quickly stood up as well. "Hey, that's not what I meant. I just wanted to be upfront with you so it wouldn't be weird. Whether you say yes or no, I'm still going to pursue you." Her expression was dead serious. I just gave her a cool glance. "Do whatever you want." Before I left, I grabbed another book from a nearby shelf. Chloe followed me, asking if I wanted to get lunch, but I immediately turned her down. Undeterred, she then asked for my number. I was getting annoyed with her persistence and finally said, "Maybe next time, if we run into each other again, I'll give you my number." This time, Chloe didn't press the issue. After I left, she immediately went back into the library, her intentions obvious. But I didn't care. People don't value things that come too easily. My goal was to cement a perfect image of myself in her mind while the Harrison family was busy trying to reel me in. Over the next few days, I stuck to my routine between campus and my apartment, making sure to avoid the library. Then, on Sunday, my apartment received its second wave of visitors, Richard and Eleanor Harrison themselves. Ever since I'd rejected their employees, Richard had been planning his own visit, and today he finally found the time to come with his wife. As for Maria and Mike, they were waiting downstairs. "Who are you?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe in the early morning light. Neither Richard nor Eleanor had expected me to be so handsome. They both stared, stunned for a moment before they collected themselves. A son this good-looking was a pleasure just to look at. Once I was back with the Harrisons, regardless of my background or education, this face alone would be a powerful asset. "Hello, young man," Richard began, his earlier annoyance gone. I don't suppose you know who I am? Before he arrived, Richard had been impatient. He felt no connection to the son he'd never raised. If it weren't for the blood tie, he wouldn't have bothered making the trip at all. But now, it seemed this visit was far more valuable than he had anticipated. I raised an eyebrow. If I knew you, would I be asking who you are? My attitude clearly irked him, but the thought of the benefits I could bring to the Harrison family made him swallow his annoyance. He never imagined I would refuse adoption. After all, he was the richest man in Seaview City. How hard could it be to handle a teenager? Then allow me to introduce myself. I'm Richard Harrison, head of Harrison Holdings. Here's my card. He offered it to me with a magnanimous smile. I made no move to take it, instead asking, "What is it you want?" I wasn't giving him an inch of respect. Richard didn't seem fazed, retracting the card. "It's like this. A man and a woman came to see you a few days ago, correct? They should have explained the situation. Your father saved my life, and his dying wish was for me to find you and make things right." I cut him off. "You want me to be your son?" Richard nodded. "Yes, but rest assured we'll go through the official adoption process. Everyone in Seaview City will know you are my son, a Harrison." He sighed, looking at me with a supposedly paternal gaze. "I know you lost your mother when you were young, and it must have been hard growing up alone for 17 years. But no matter what happened in the past, I won't let you suffer anymore. The Harrison family may not be royalty, but we have considerable influence in Seaview City. We can support you in anything you want to do. From now on, you will be my son." Richard's speech was meant to be touching, but I was completely unmoved. I looked at him, my expression flat. "No, thank you. Like I said, I'm not looking for a new father." He never expected another refusal, and his face fell. "This isn't random. Your father saved my life." I replied calmly, "I'm not the one who saved you. You should have repaid him with a comfortable life back then. You have no obligation to his son. Besides, I'm doing just fine on my own." Richard scanned my small apartment. "You call this doing fine?" I remained perfectly calm. "I'm happy, and that's all that matters." There was no way I was going back as an adopted son. I wanted Richard Harrison to personally acknowledge me as his biological son, and I was going to shatter the Harrison family's peaceful existence, piece by piece. I could just as easily torment them from the outside. Going to their house as an adopted son would just be putting myself in a cage, making it incredibly easy for them to pin anything they wanted on me. I wasn't afraid, but I didn't need the hassle. Besides, only by returning as their true son could I see just how innocent their precious fake heir, Evan, really was. I looked at their angry faces. Anything else? If not, I have places to be. I closed the door and started to walk away, but Eleanor hurried after me. "Young man, you're still young. You don't understand the importance of money." I cut her off before she could finish. "I'll make my own." Eleanor just smiled. "How much could you possibly make? I'm not trying to put you down, but the Harrisons could give you a mansion without a second thought. How long would it take you to earn that on your own?" At that, I stopped and turned, my eyes filled with scorn. "Is adoption the only way to repay a debt? What does that tell me?" "It tells me this isn't about my father at all. If I became your son, you'd expect every dollar you invested in me to be returned tenfold. And the moment I refused to follow your orders, you'd brand me as ungrateful. You're such hypocrites. Don't bother coming back. I will never agree to this, no matter what you say." Seeing the mix of guilt, rage, and disbelief on their faces, I smiled, turned, and walked away, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. Now it was time to mess with the younger one, Chloe. After all, the whole family deserved to be tormented together. After several days, I finally returned to the library on Oak Street. Before I even got close, I saw Chloe squatting by the entrance, looking utterly frustrated. The moment she saw me, her eyes lit up, and she jogged over. "Hey, I finally found you again. Can I please get your number this time?" I frowned coldly. Seeing my expression, Chloe hesitated. "You said before that if we ran into each other again." I cut her off, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "You rich people are all the same, aren't you? You love preying on handsome guys who don't have any money, right?" My words were a clear signal that something was bothering me. Chloe's expression grew serious, and when I turned to leave, she hurried after me. "Hey, did something happen? You can tell me. Maybe I can help." When I ignored her, she quickly added, "Look, I admit that a lot of crushes start with physical attraction, but I never meant to offend you." After she said this, she saw my expression soften slightly. She let out a breath of relief and continued with even more sincerity. "Ever since you said you'd give me your number next time, I've come to this library every single day, just hoping to see you again and maybe become friends. I gave her a look that spoke volumes. Chloe smiled. I'm sure that sooner or later, I'll win you over and you'll be my boyfriend. I finally dropped the icy facade. That confident, are you? She puffed out her chest. Of course. You might have thought I was just a pretty face at first, but once you get to know me, you'll see how great I am. I raised an eyebrow. You're not bad looking. I'll give you that. After a bit more conversation, the tension between us eased. We found a nearby cafe, and once we sat down, Chloe asked why I had been in such a foul mood earlier. I was quiet for a moment before carefully choosing my words. Today, this wealthy couple showed up at my apartment. They claimed to be old friends of my father and said they wanted to adopt me. Chloe looked baffled. That's ridiculous. You look like you're almost 18. Why would they want to adopt you now? I glanced at her and said calmly, they said if I agreed to be their son, I wouldn't have to struggle for years to make it. Chloe scoffed in anger. So what if they're rich? That's disgusting. And besides, she trailed off as a realization dawned on her, her expression freezing. Wait, you mean? I knew what she was thinking and nodded. Yes, I'm an orphan. I never knew my father, and my mother died when I was 7. I said it matter-of-factly with a detached expression, but my nonchalance only made the words more poignant. Chloe had no idea that the wealthy couple I was describing were her own parents, or that I was the worthless, despised brother she loathed. She was at a loss for words. After all, as a practical stranger, she wasn't in a position to make me any promises. After a moment of thought, Chloe took a deep breath. Hey, are you struggling with money or anything? If you need help, I can help you. But please, don't let that rich couple adopt you. A guy as good-looking as you, if you become their son, they'll just control you and use you. Seeing the genuine concern on her face, I pursed my lips and couldn't help but smile. I know, and I'm doing fine. I'm not short on cash. You don't have to worry. I already rejected them firmly. I told them I would never agree to be adopted, no matter what. Chloe finally relaxed, though her brow remained furrowed. People like that don't give up easily. Tell me who they are. My family isn't super powerful, but we have some pull in Seaview City. I shook my head. No need. Just think of them as pathetic clowns. Talking to you has been nice, though. It's taken my mind off things. With that, I pulled out my phone and finally let her add me on iMessage. We talked for a while longer, and I casually mentioned that I had gotten into Crestwood University with a full scholarship when I was just 15. When the moment felt right, I said I had to leave. Chloe was clearly reluctant to see me go. Where are you headed? I can give you a ride. I naturally declined. I just have some errands to run. I need to find a good contractor for the condo I just bought. It's where I'll be living soon. Chloe wanted to come along, but seeing my detached expression, she changed her tune. Well, can I take you out to dinner sometime, then? I smiled faintly. Of course, if I'm free. The sunlight caught my face, casting a soft golden hue over me, making me seem almost radiant. In that moment, Chloe could hear her own heart pounding in her chest. She opened her mouth to speak. Then it's a date. With that, I walked away with a confident stride. Chloe stared after me for a long time before snapping out of it, pulling out her phone like a giddy teenager, and grinning uncontrollably at my contact photo in her iMessage. She finally had my number, and she knew my name, Ethan Harrison. What a great name, she thought. And he had the same last name as her. It had to be fate. They were destined to be family. Chloe took a deep breath and headed home, her spirits soaring. She had no idea that her actual brother's name was also Ethan Harrison. If Harrison Holdings was the king of real estate in Seaview City, then Lunar Gems was the symbol of its wealth. Only the rich and powerful could afford their pieces. Most ordinary people had never even heard of the brand. And I was Lunar Gems' largest shareholder. I was only 13 when I became a shareholder. I had used a single piece of Imperial Jade to save the Miller family from bankruptcy, becoming their greatest benefactor and earning a 50% stake in Lunar Gems. Ever since, I've made an annual trip to a neighboring state, bringing back exquisite raw gemstones to sell to the company. Thanks to those stones, Lunar Gems thrived, becoming the undisputed leader of the jewelry industry in Seaview City. The entire Miller family was eternally grateful, telling me to come to them for anything I needed. But I don't trust anyone. In my experience, you can never truly know what's in a person's heart, and hearts are notoriously fickle. So, despite my many investments, I never told a soul about my history with the Harrisons, nor did I ever hint at my plans for revenge. I lived like any other normal kid, studying hard and enjoying time with my friends. Leo Miller was the first real friend I made. He's 4 years older than me and started his own interior design firm in Seaview City after college. So, I gave him a call to get his help designing my new condo. Leo was thrilled to hear from me. Well, Look what the cat dragged in. Ethan, you finally bought a place of your own? I thought you were going to live on campus forever. Where are you? I'm free right now, I can head over. Leo always made me a priority. I smiled and told him, I'm on Oak Street. His office wasn't far, so he met up with me just a few minutes later. Meanwhile, back at the Harrison estate, Richard was fuming. He couldn't believe he'd been so thoroughly rejected, even after going in person. To make matters worse, I had practically cursed him out on his way out the door. How could a man of his stature tolerate such disrespect? He was silent the entire ride home, but the moment he walked through the door, his rage exploded. He kicked over a vase in the foyer and turned on Eleanor. What exactly was your purpose today? Did I bring you along to be a silent statue? You didn't say a single word. The chairman of the board, get chewed out by some punk kid, and you just stood there and watched. Did you enjoy the show? Eleanor's eyes welled up with tears. How could I have enjoyed that? Before we left, I was thinking, he's my son, no matter what he's like. As long as he behaves, we have to treat him well. But I never imagined he would be so disrespectful. We were offering him a lifeline, and he called us hypocrites who didn't know what's good for us. What's the use of a son like that? It's a good thing we told him that story instead of the truth. If he knew he was the real Harrison heir, he'd destroy this family. How was I supposed to know he'd be like that? She retorted, meeting Richard's furious gaze. Any maternal feeling she might have had for me was gone. Wiping a tear from her eye, she went on. If he doesn't want to be adopted, then fine. I'm done with this thankless task. If he's really that desperate, we can give him some money and consider our duty as parents fulfilled. From now on, Evan is my only son. Richard wasn't finished with her. Easy for you to say. I'd love to wash my hands of him, but what happens if someone finds out who he is and uses it against us? He could do anything, and the scandal would disgrace the Harrison name. If he has no manners, we'll bring him here and teach him. If he's ignorant, we'll force him to learn. You're afraid he'll upset you, but aren't you more afraid of the public gossip? You women are so short-sighted, you only see what's right in front of you, not the larger consequences. Now that we know he exists, we have no choice but to bring him into the fold. Richard's logic was sound, but after meeting me, Eleanor wanted nothing to do with me. She sank onto the sofa, resentful and hurt. But he doesn't want to be adopted. We can't just tell him the truth, can we? If he comes home as your biological son, what happens to Evan? You can't just think about the family's reputation and not consider Evan's feelings. Even if he's not our blood, he's been a wonderful, kind son. He wouldn't be able to handle the truth. Richard waved her off. What's more important, Evan or the Harrison family? Besides, who said anything about telling him the truth? A hard glint appeared in his eyes. Stay out of it. I'll find a way to bring him here. Your job will be to teach him how to behave once he arrives. With that, Richard stood and went upstairs. Eleanor understood what he was planning. My arrival was now inevitable, and thinking of my hostile attitude, she felt a wave of self-pity and started to cry. It was at that moment that Chloe returned home. Seeing her mother in tears, Chloe's heart sank. Mom, why are you crying? What happened? Where's Dad? Weren't you supposed to go get that punk today? He didn't come back. Seeing her daughter only made Eleanor more upset. She dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief and recounted the day's events from start to finish. She made sure to emphasize my disrespectful words, painting herself as the victim to Chloe. Chloe was furious. In her mind, this so-called brother was nothing but a lowlife. A punk like that should be on his knees with gratitude for an opportunity to join the Harrison family, but instead, he had the audacity to insult her mother. Who the hell did he think he was? If he weren't related to them by blood, no one would give him a second glance. For a moment, Chloe completely forgot about the handsome boy from the library. Mom, don't cry. Dad's right. We have to bring him here, to keep him from embarrassing the family name out in public. A vicious glint appeared in Chloe's eyes. There were many things she could do to him, but only after he was under their roof. At that moment, Chloe had absolutely no idea that the lowlife she was plotting against was the very same boy she was fantasizing about. After showing Leo the condo, I had planned to grab lunch with him, but he had a prior engagement, so I had to pass. I just grabbed a quick bite myself and headed back to campus. I had a private dorm at the university, a 2-story villa. The first floor was my living space, while the second was set up as a small lab with equipment for the research projects assigned by the system. Over the past 10 years, the system had helped me immensely. Without the system, I never could have achieved what I have today. My greatest asset wasn't the money in my bank account or my connections, but the reward the system offered, a unique legacy unlocked by collecting a series of scrolls. I had almost all of them. Once my current research project was complete, I would receive the final fragment. Anything from the system was top tier. 2 years ago, it assigned me a research project, a spatial storage pouch. With the system's guidance, I successfully found some alternative materials and managed to create a semi-functional prototype. I called it a prototype because items stored inside would randomly fall out. Even so, it was a shocking breakthrough. It was easy to imagine the sensation this technology would cause once perfected. For the past 2 years, my entire focus has been on turning that prototype into a finished product ready for the world. The higher-ups took this project very seriously, even assigning 4 top experts in the field to assist me. For my own safety, the official story was that I was their intern, but in reality, I was the one in charge. Now, with the project nearing completion, my schedule was finally starting to open up. The timing was perfect for the Harrisons to show up, as I finally had the time to deal with them. I went back to my villa and headed straight for the second-floor lab. I still hadn't been able to create a stable version of the pouch, and the system wasn't giving me any more clues. I was on my own. Staring at the small pouch in my hand, I frowned, completely stumped. Besides an adhesive bond, what other method could secure the items inside? I sat in my lab for what felt like hours, lost in thought, until the ringing of my phone snapped me out of it. It was my landlord. She got straight to the point. "Ethan, have you gotten on someone's bad side recently? Some guy offered to pay double the rent for your apartment, on the condition that you're out in 3 days. I told him no, of course, but then he offered to pay 4 times the rent. I knew it was the Harrisons. I didn't waste any more of her time. I get it, Cindy. I'll come by tomorrow to pack my things." She sounded apologetic. "That's not what I meant, Ethan. I'm just letting you know. I'm not going to rent it to them." I cut her off. "You should take it. Why turn down 4 times the rent? I can just live on campus. Just do me a favor and don't tell them anything about me." She quickly agreed. "Of course I won't, but why are they after you? Is there anything I can do to help? I know a few people who could." She felt guilty and kept rambling. I gave a few non-committal answers and hung up, my eyes cold. I knew Richard would make a move, but I didn't think he'd be this impatient. With that thought, I raised an eyebrow and opened iMessage. I saw several notifications from Chloe. I replied to one of her messages, then called my official academic advisor. "Hello, Professor Reed. I'm being harassed. My landlord just called and told me I have 3 days to move out because I've apparently offended someone." My advisor's name was Dr. Evelyn Reed. She was from Washington, D.C. and was one of the 4 experts assigned to my project by the higher-ups. Her background was formidable, as were the other 3. With 4 powerful figures backing me, it would be foolish to stay silent when provoked. Before the Harrisons made their move, I had to hide my intentions. But now that they had acted, everything could proceed as planned. I briefly mentioned the Harrisons' attempt to adopt me, downplaying it, but it was enough to infuriate Dr. Reed. I wasn't the type to cause drama. I was calm, reserved, and discreet. Despite my age and the groundbreaking nature of my work on the spatial pouch, I never breathed a word of it to anyone. More importantly, I wasn't just her student. I was a key researcher on a nationally significant project. With the project so close to completion, for this family to suddenly appear and try to adopt me raised serious questions. Were they acting on someone else's orders? Did they know something about my research? The implications were severe. "Ethan, stay on campus for the next few days. Don't go out unless you have to. I'll have someone look into this. And don't worry, the Harrisons are small fry. They can't cause any real trouble. As for the apartment, when I have a free day, I'll take you house hunting myself. You can pick any place you want." Dr. Reed offered a few more words of reassurance before hanging up. She immediately made another call. "Hello, you have 24 hours. Investigate the Harrison family. Find out who they've been in contact with. If you find anything suspicious, handle it." Hearing the dial tone, a faint smile touched my lips. In iMessage, Chloe had already replied, asking if I was free. She was near the Crestwood University campus and wanted to know if I'd go out for barbecue. I wasn't about to refuse. If things went as planned, she would be finding out my true identity in the next few days anyway. Before that happened, I needed to maximize her affection for me. I didn't want her to get over me too quickly. The night air was cool as I changed and headed out to meet her. A simple white t-shirt, jeans, and white sneakers, a casual look that gave off a relaxed, sunny vibe. It was precisely this effortless style that captivated Chloe. She stared at me for a second before collecting herself. "I'm sorry for dragging you out so late," she said, a little flustered. In contrast to her nervousness, I was perfectly calm, a slight smile on my face. "Nothing to be sorry about. I was getting hungry anyway. You said you wanted barbecue, right? There's a great spot near the Crestwood campus. I'll take you. Chloe nodded enthusiastically. The area around Crestwood was full of small eateries and barbecue joints. I picked the one with the best reviews and led her there. It was late, and the place was packed with Crestwood students grabbing a late-night meal. Being handsome, I immediately drew stares the moment we sat down. People kept looking over, shooting envious glances at Chloe. Her vanity was soaring, and the look she gave me grew even more intense. I saw it all and laughed to myself. It was true. It didn't matter how old a woman was. Stroke her ego and satisfy her vanity, and you could easily win her over. I calmly handed her the menu. See what looks good to you. Chloe smiled. You order first. I'll eat whatever. I'm not picky. I didn't press her. All right. I ordered some skewers and a plate of spicy crawfish, then looked up at her. Do you like spicy food? She nodded eagerly. I love it. The spicier the better. I gave a non-committal grunt, handed the menu to the waiter, and then just sat there, staring into space, making no effort to talk to her. I made sure to look like I was in a terrible mood. This made Chloe antsy. She racked her brain for something to say and finally came up with the perfect icebreaker. We ordered so much spicy food. Should we get something to drink? That snapped me out of my daze. You can order whatever you want. Well, what do you like to drink? Do you like boba tea? I could go get some. Before Chloe could finish, a sports drink was suddenly placed on our table. She looked up, startled, to see a stunningly beautiful girl smiling right at me. Out for a late-night snack by yourself again? Here's your favorite. The girl looked to be in her early 20s, dressed in an elegant white dress that gave her a gentle air. But that was just for show. Her first sentence revealed her true colors. Instantly, alarm bells went off in Chloe's head. I, however, just raised an eyebrow. Sophia, what are you doing here? Her name was Sophia Collins, a finance major at Crestwood, a year ahead of me. She had countless admirers on campus, but for some reason, she had set her sights on me. Probably to save face, Sophia never openly admitted she liked me, but whenever she was free, she would inevitably show up wherever I was. If she saw me with another girl, she would use subtle tactics to scare her off. Tonight was no different. Her first sentence was a clear shot at Chloe. The second established her familiarity with me. Combined with her gentle facade, it was enough to intimidate any less confident girl into backing down. But Chloe wasn't just any girl. She quickly realized she was face to face with a rival. Chloe took a deep breath, her competitive spirit ignited. I was just out for a late snack too, Sophia said, pulling up a chair and sitting right next to me. 3 of her friends, all around the same age, followed suit, pulling up chairs of their own. Our table for 2 was suddenly a crowded table for 6. Chloe's face darkened instantly. The 3 newcomers were already smiling and introducing themselves to me. Hi, you must be Ethan. I'm Tiffany, Sophia's roommate. I'm Monica. And I'm Lauren. They were all well-dressed and attractive, with bright, clear eyes. After the introductions, Tiffany even offered a formal apology, saying how sorry they were for intruding. Monica immediately jumped in. It's just that Sophia never stops talking about you. We were just so curious. Lauren added, she talks you up so much we thought she was exaggerating, but now that we've met you, I see she wasn't. Sophia cut them off with a gentle laugh. What are you guys talking about? Ethan, don't listen to them. They've got nothing better to do than gossip. The 4 of them had a practiced routine, one that completely excluded Chloe from the conversation. This was exactly what I wanted. I glanced over at Chloe and saw her face was thunderous. I pursed my lips and offered a polite smile. It's nice to meet you all. This is my friend, Chloe. I was actually having dinner with her tonight. I couldn't let Chloe be completely humiliated, at least not yet. By coming to her defense like this, I knew her affection for me would soar. Sophia's smile faltered for a split second before she turned her attention to Chloe. Oh, so you're Ethan's friend? I'm so sorry. I didn't even see you there. Her 3 friends chimed in with their own half-hearted apologies. Their tone was dismissive, but Chloe responded with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. It's no problem. You're Ethan's friends, which makes you my friends too. Please order whatever you like. It's on me tonight. But Sophia was no amateur. Oh, we couldn't let you do that. You're not a Crestwood student, are you? Since you're visiting our campus, it's only right that I treat you. Please order anything you want. It's my treat. Chloe didn't argue. Well, thank you, Sophia. Then she turned and smiled at me. Ethan, since Sophia's treating tonight, I'll just have to take you out some other time. The words hit their mark. Sophia's smile froze on her face again. I just smiled and nodded. Chloe was a Harrison through and through. She held her own against all 4 of them without breaking a sweat. Throughout the meal, she never lost the upper hand. They all tried to get her drunk, but Chloe ended up drinking every single one of them under the table. Seeing how late it was, I suggested we leave. Chloe delivered the final, devastating blow to a barely coherent Sophia. Well, Sophia, Ethan and I are going to head out. Thanks for dinner. Next time I'm on the Crestwood campus, I'll be sure to treat you. The words were so infuriating that Sophia almost lost her composure. But she was too drunk to do anything but watch as Chloe and I left together. I glanced at Chloe, whose face was slightly flushed, and let out a sigh. I'm sorry about tonight. You shouldn't have had to deal with that. Chloe quickly waved it off. Are you kidding? That wasn't suffering, it was just a few drinks. Isn't that what being young is all about? Drinking and having fun. I raised an eyebrow. So you drink like that often? No wonder you could handle all 4 of them on your own. My question was like a splash of cold water, and she instantly sobered up. No, not at all. It's just my family can hold their liquor really well, but I hardly ever drink. Sophia and her friends were just being so welcoming, I couldn't be rude. Besides, drinking too much is bad for you. She scrambled to backtrack, but the more she talked, the more she seemed to be digging a hole. I had no intention of letting her off the hook. While she was on this high, all it would take was a slight shift in my attitude and a pointed comment to send her into a spiral of self-doubt. I held up my phone. I called you a car. You've had a lot to drink, you should get home and rest. Wait here for a second, I need to grab something. With that, I turned and walked away. Chloe's heart sank. She'd said the wrong thing. Now Ethan's opinion of her was ruined. The thought instantly sobered her up, filling her with regret, panic, and anxiety. He was so amazing, he must have countless girls chasing him, many of them rich and talented, just like that Sophia. She remembered how he had frowned when they were all trying to get her to drink. It was obvious he disapproved of their behavior. She was such an idiot. Why hadn't she just pretended to be drunk? The more Chloe thought about it, the more her head throbbed. Just as her thoughts were spiraling, a small box appeared in her line of sight. Her eyes followed the hand holding it up to my face. My expression was neutral, giving me a cool, detached air. The orange glow of the streetlight haloed my head, and in that instant, it felt like Chloe's heart exploded too, beating wildly and uncontrollably. I pressed the box into her hand. Here, it's for the hangover. You'll probably feel better after you take it. In that moment, it was as if fireworks were going off in Chloe's mind. It was a perfect night. I knew that to make someone fall completely in love with you, you had to play with their emotions, pushing and pulling until their entire mood hinged on your every action. And I was almost there. So when Chloe got home and sent me a message saying she'd made it back safely, I acted like I hadn't seen it and didn't reply. I finished up what I was doing and went to bed. I slept well and woke up early the next morning. The first thing I did was check my phone, where I found over 20 messages from Chloe, sent sporadically throughout the night. I'm home. Thanks for the medicine. My head doesn't hurt at all. Did you get back to campus okay? She had sent a new one about every half hour. They started out normal, but as the night wore on, their tone shifted. I don't know how else to say it, but I really don't drink like that usually. Tonight was a total exception. The last message was from 2 in the morning. Seeing her panic bleed through the screen, I raised an eyebrow and smiled, then typed a short reply. Sorry, I was exhausted last night and passed out as soon as I got back. She must have been up all night, because she replied the instant I sent my message. Oh, you were just asleep? I was worried you were ignoring me. She even added a sad face emoji. I found it pathetic. Before I could even reply, another message came through. Are you free today? I know a really great sushi place. I replied immediately. Can't today. I'm moving. The moment I sent that, she immediately offered to come and help. I tried to politely decline, saying I could handle it, but she insisted, claiming she was already at the main gate of Crestwood University, waiting for me. My mood lifted instantly. All right then, wait for me at the East Gate. I'll be out in a bit. Meanwhile, in a bustling airport terminal, a handsome young man stood next to a tall, striking woman, the two of them laughing and talking. Morgan, the young man said, do you think Mom and Dad will be surprised we're back so early? This was Evan Harrison, the family's adopted son. A month ago, he'd been in a minor car accident that left a small, faint scar on his cheek. Evan, who was always meticulous about his appearance, couldn't stand the imperfection. He had called his older sister, Morgan, who was away at college, and they had flown to Seoul for a cosmetic procedure, only returning today. As they walked, Evan chattered on. Dad's probably already at the office. He works so hard. I'm going to make him a special dinner tonight, a home-cooked meal from his real son. Evan had no idea he wasn't their biological son. The Harrisons genuinely adored him. When they first discovered he wasn't their blood relative, their first instinct was to hide it, and their second was to wonder if Eleanor had been unfaithful. But after a DNA test confirmed Evan wasn't Eleanor's son either, they knew something was wrong and finally launched an investigation. But how could a boy who'd been on his own for 17 years, a high school dropout, compare to Evan, the son they had raised and loved for 17 years? So the family made a unanimous decision. They would hide the truth. They would bring the real heir back as an adopted son, give him a place to live, but I was never to dream of taking Evan's place as the Harrison heir. Evan's face was alight with happiness. Beside him, Morgan glanced at him, her eyes filled with adoration and a touch of pity. Evan didn't know it yet, but when he got home, he would no longer be the only son in the Harrison family. At the thought, Morgan took a deep breath, a look of disgust flashing in her eyes. She hoped the new boy knew his place and didn't get any foolish ideas. Otherwise, even if Ethan Harrison was her real brother, she would not spare him. Meanwhile, after helping me move the last box into my dorm, Chloe was having an existential crisis. Because my dorm was a 2-story villa. At Crestwood University, the only people who lived in villas like this were tenured professors or someone who had made a major contribution to the school. I was clearly too young to be a professor, which meant I had to be in the latter category. The last student to receive such an honor was a genius who had won first place in a global robotics competition. That was 5 years ago, and it had put Crestwood University on the international map. Sitting on the sofa in my villa, Chloe's face was flushed, and she seemed to be in a daze. She couldn't believe that the seemingly innocent boy before her was in the same league as her idols. I just nodded calmly. Yes, I did some work for the university, so my advisor specially requested this place for me. Her eyes went wide, and her youthful energy made her look almost cute. What did you do? Pursed my lips. Sorry, it's confidential. If things go well, you'll probably find out in a few months. That sounds serious, Chloe said, surprised. Is it something really important? What field is it in? I shook my head. Sorry, I can't tell you. I signed a non-disclosure agreement. Chloe gasped. An NDA? But you look like you're my age. I looked at her calmly. Does being young mean you can't accomplish things? Age doesn't define everything. I stood up, changing the subject. Thanks for your help with the move. Come on, let me buy you lunch. Chloe's mind was racing. She wanted to ask more, but she could tell from my expression that she wouldn't get any answers. All her questions condensed into 3 simple words. You're really amazing. I was amazing. If Chloe's initial attraction to me was purely physical, she was now completely in awe of me. She'd been pursued by plenty of guys, many of them top students, but compared to me, they were nothing. She had never imagined a teenager could be so accomplished, and on top of that, I was more handsome than any boy she had ever met. In an instant, my status in her mind skyrocketed. Now, when she looked at me, her eyes held not just infatuation, but also deep respect. I replied modestly, "It's nothing special. So lunch?" Chloe nodded. Of course, I'd love that. Before she could say more, her phone started ringing. She pulled out her phone. The name Evan flashed on the screen. Normally, Chloe would have been thrilled to get a call from him, but now, she glanced at me first. Seeing my expression was unchanged, she answered. Before she could say a word, Evan's cheerful voice came through the phone. "Little sis, I'm back. Did you miss me? I missed you like crazy while I was in Seoul. I'm almost home. Are you on campus or at the house? You didn't skip class today, did you? Because if you did, you know I'm gonna get you for it." Evan went on, but Chloe wasn't listening. Her mind was completely occupied with thoughts of me. She cut him off impatiently. "Okay, Evan, look, I'm kinda busy right now. I'll talk to you tonight when I get home." Without waiting for a reply, she hung up. On the other end of the line, Evan stared at his phone, stunned and confused. Morgan, sitting beside him, noticed his change in mood. "What's wrong, Evan?" Evan snapped out of it, his good mood instantly souring. "It's nothing, just Chloe being weird. She just hung up on me. I'm so going to get her for that when I get home." To save face, Richard and Eleanor hadn't told Morgan about my refusal to come home, only that there were some complications. So when she heard Evan's complaint, Morgan's first thought was that Chloe's behavior had something to do with her new, cheap little brother. Her brow furrowed, and she ruffled Evan's hair. "Don't worry, I'll help you get her back." This so-called brother was clearly a schemer. In such a short time, he already had Chloe hanging up on Evan for him. It was a good thing she had come home too. Evan would be no match for him on his own. After hanging up, Chloe explained that it was her brother on the phone. She said he'd had a minor accident a while back and had been traveling, only just returning today. I smiled slightly. "He calls you the second he's back in the country. You two must be close." Chloe smiled back. "We are. He's the only brother I've got. As she said it, she completely forgot that her real brother was still out there somewhere. Even though he's older, he acts like a kid most of the time. Actually, he's the same age as you. You two would probably have a lot to talk about if you met. She chattered on enthusiastically about her family, trying to build a connection between us. When she mentioned that Evan was my age, she lit up. Hey, maybe I should introduce you two sometime. Her face was alight with excitement, completely missing the cold indifference in my eyes. I waited for her to finish before replying, sure, I'd look forward to that. Chloe and I went for lunch at a sushi place near campus. She had wanted to take me somewhere fancier, but I'd already wasted enough time on her for one day, so I told her I had to get back to campus for something. Chloe was disappointed but still hopeful. Okay, I'll message you in a couple of days. I'll bring my brother along so you two can meet. I nodded. Sure, if we get the chance. Chloe was ecstatic, already planning what gift she could buy Evan to convince him to help her win me over. After leaving campus, she went straight to a boutique and bought the newest model Rolex watch before speeding home to the Harrison estate. When Evan got home, Richard had already left for the office, leaving only Eleanor and the staff. Evan wasn't disappointed. He handed out the souvenirs he'd bought to the staff, then presented Eleanor with her gift, a ruby necklace from Cartier worth over $15,000, and fastened it around her neck. $15,000 was nothing to a woman of Eleanor's status, but the gesture from her son warmed her heart. With Morgan back as well, the gloom that had settled over the house because of me had started to lift. You shouldn't have spent your money on me, she said, touched. Evan smiled. I just saw it and thought it would look perfect on you, Mom. Besides, what's wrong with buying my mother a gift? When I start making my own money, I'll buy you gifts every day. Evan's sweet words made Eleanor beam. Oh, you. Just the thought is enough. I know you're a good son. Evan replied, just the thought isn't enough. You have to follow through with actions. Otherwise, you're just making empty promises. I'd never be that kind of person, especially not to you, Mom. I always keep my promises. Eleanor was overjoyed, looking years younger in her happiness. The happy family scene made Morgan relax as well. She had been dreading coming home to find her so-called brother already there, but to her relief, he hadn't arrived yet. If he were here, Evan wouldn't be this happy, would he? It would be better if he never came back at all. She could give him a large sum of money to stay away. Too bad her parents had rejected that idea. Doted on by his family, Evan was in high spirits, temporarily forgetting all about Chloe's strange behavior. And when Chloe returned with the Rolex, his mood improved even more. He never expected, however, that the first thing out of her mouth would be about me. Evan, he's so amazing and so handsome. You'd love him if you met him. If you could become friends with him, it would give me a much better chance. Please, Evan, I really like him. You have to help me. Chloe went through boyfriends like she went through books, and every single one of them had tried to suck up to Evan to get on her good side. This was the first time she had ever asked for his help to win a guy over. And from the sound of it, she expected him to be the one doing the sucking up. This made Evan, who was used to being the center of attention, extremely uncomfortable. The smile on his face became strained, but he still said, all right, fine. Introduce me to him when you get a chance. I'm curious to see what kind of guy has my little sister so completely obsessed. Chloe was overjoyed. Thank you, Evan. You're the best brother in the world. She started planning when to arrange the meeting, but before she could set a date, trouble hit the Harrison family business. First, the Heiress showed up to audit the company. Then, one by one, their corporate partners began terminating their contracts, bringing a newly launched investment project to a grinding halt. The series of disasters left Richard reeling. As a veteran of the business world, he knew this wasn't a coincidence. Someone was deliberately targeting him. He spent a fortune calling in favors, trying to find out who was behind it. At first, no one would talk, but finally, one old partner took pity on him and gave him a hint. You must have offended someone powerful, Richard. The person behind this is someone we can't afford to cross. We can't say anything more. Richard panicked. He racked his brain but couldn't think of anyone he had offended. He was so stressed that he broke out in cold sores overnight. Finally, a contact he had paid a fortune to maintain over the years gave him a clue. Don't panic too much. I heard a whisper from on high. They said your family was harassing a person of national importance, so they're just teaching you a small lesson. Richard felt completely wronged. A person of national importance. Why would I harass someone like that? I have better things to do with my time. It never even crossed his mind that the person they were talking about could be me. The contact sighed. Did you, by any chance, offer to pay several times the normal rate to rent a one-bedroom apartment a few days ago? Richard started to scoff. Why on earth would I rent a one-bed? He stopped mid-sentence, suddenly remembering his attempt to force my hand. A jolt of shock went through him, followed by a wave of utter disbelief. You mean? Seeing that Richard understood, the contact spoke plainly. I heard you were trying to adopt that boy. His identity is significant. The people upstairs initially investigated you as a potential foreign agent. When they cleared you, they decided to just give you a warning. Listen to me, don't try to call in any favors. It won't work. Pay your back taxes, consider it the cost of doing business, and apologize to your former partners. Got it. With that, the line went dead. Listening to the dial tone, Richard was speechless with shock and confusion. He had never, in his wildest dreams, imagined that the biological son he had dismissed and looked down upon could be a person of national importance. After all, the background check he'd run had painted me as a high school dropout, a nobody. How could someone like that be worthy of being a Harrison? His decisions were always driven by profit. When he thought his son was a failure, his first instinct was to give me a new identity and a comfortable life, considering that a fair trade. He never expected that I was actually so brilliant, a nationally valued asset at such a young age. He had made one small move against me and had nearly been investigated as a spy. For a moment, Richard was filled with regret, but that regret was quickly replaced by overwhelming pride and excitement. He was his son after all, his own flesh and blood, to be so brilliant even after growing up on the outside. In that case, bringing me home as an adopted son was out of the question. I had to be acknowledged as his true biological son. But if that happened, what would they do about Evan? Eleanor had seen how stressed her husband had been, and she was worried sick. She had considered many possibilities for their recent troubles, but she had never imagined they could be connected to her long-lost son. When Richard told her the truth, she was in disbelief. It was only when Richard announced his intention to bring me back as the true Harrison heir that she finally snapped out of it. Evan has been with us his whole life. If he finds out he's not our real son, he'll be devastated. I know Ethan is brilliant, but we can't just ignore Evan's feelings. Richard was fond of Evan, but his affection was tainted with pragmatism, not as pure as the rest of the family's. He sneered at his wife's words. Do you have any idea how brilliant your brilliant son actually is? I made one tiny move against him, and it nearly destroyed our entire company. If we dare to hide his true identity, forget about whether he'd even agree to come home, the government would never let us get away with treating him like that. Besides, that whole savior story was a lie. You don't think they can find that out? Eleanor was still skeptical. Is he really that powerful? If he's so important, why was he living in a tiny one-bedroom apartment? And everyone from his high school said he was a dropout. Richard waved his hand dismissively. What do a bunch of kids know? He had considered that himself. If I was that important to the government, my work had to be top secret. They probably recruited me directly, and to anyone on the outside, it would have looked like I just dropped out. The students wouldn't know the truth. Even the teachers were probably kept in the dark. Richard took a deep breath, his excitement palpable. He is our son. Once we officially acknowledge him, the Harrison family will benefit immensely. We'll rise to new heights. Seeing his excitement, Eleanor knew his mind was made up, her brow furrowed in worry. But Evan, Richard cut her off. Can't be helped. He'll just have to deal with it. And it's not like he's the victim here. He's lived a life of luxury in our son's place for 17 years. If anyone's been wronged, it's Ethan. With that, Richard patted her shoulder. Go prepare some gifts, things a young man would like. I'm gonna go talk to him tomorrow and clear the air. Eleanor was surprised. So soon. After our last encounter, she was hesitant to have me home, but she was even more terrified of how Evan would react. But what about Evan? Just tell him the truth. Eleanor sighed heavily. How can he possibly accept it on such short notice? She clutched Richard's sleeve. Couldn't we just say they're twins? They don't look alike, but fraternal twins exist. The more she thought about it, the more plausible it seemed. That way, Ethan can come home as our son, and it won't be such a shock for Evan. Evan is so kind-hearted. He'd even take good care of his new brother. Before they had tried to trick me with their fabricated story, the fraternal twin lie might have worked. But now, after everything that had happened, there was no way I would believe it. Even after only one meeting, Richard knew I wasn't a pushover, and that was before he knew I had the government backing me. Evan, who had only been home for a few days, was completely blindsided by the news. How can this be happening? Mom, how can I not be your son? You're lying to me, right? This has to be a lie. At Richard's insistence, Eleanor had told Evan everything. He refused to believe it, but her serious, worried expression and the DNA report she showed him were undeniable. Evan's world shattered. It was like falling through ice into a frozen lake. No matter what his mother said to comfort him, he couldn't accept the truth. Mother and son clung to each other, sobbing. Soon, Chloe and Morgan found them. When they learned that their mother had told Evan the truth, they were furious, demanding to know why she had broken their agreement. They had all decided I would come back as an adopted son. Eleanor hadn't wanted to, and she tearfully explained the reason to her daughters. She exaggerated my insults and glossed over Richard's heavy-handed tactics. In her telling, I was a talented but rude, ill-mannered monster. Morgan was enraged by the story, but Chloe felt a strange sense of unease. It all seemed too coincidental. If her brother was just a high school dropout, that was one thing, but a person of national importance, and just a little while ago, the boy she liked had told her about a rich couple trying to adopt him, even forcing him to move. Why did that sound so familiar? For reasons she couldn't explain, Chloe asked, "Mom, what's his name?" Eleanor wiped her eyes. "Ethan Harrison." In that instant, another heart in the room shattered. The color drained from Chloe's face. I spent the next few days cooped up in my lab. I still hadn't found a substitute for the key stabilizing agent, and after several sleepless nights, I was in a daze. I had been in the lab for days, and Dr. Reed and the other senior researchers had been there with me. But being older, they didn't have my stamina. They couldn't go for days without sleep like I could, and would retreat to the break room for a few hours when they couldn't go on. They all told me not to rush, but I was determined to finish the spatial pouch as soon as possible. It wasn't about the project itself. I just wanted that final scroll fragment and the legacy it would unlock. Dr. Reed and the others didn't know my true motivation. They just assumed I was stressed out because of the Harrisons and were both angry on my behalf and worried about me. So, the moment they heard the Harrisons had arrived on campus, they rushed to tell me, "Ethan, the Harrison family is here to see you. Go splash some water on your face and meet them. They're definitely here to apologize." I had been so engrossed in my research that I'd almost forgotten about the Harrisons. The news jolted me awake. I rubbed my face. So my little complaint had an effect? They're here? Where are they? Dr. Reed replied, "Waiting for you at the main gate. They've brought bags and bags of gifts, so they're definitely here to apologize." Who do the Harrisons think they are? If anything had happened to you, 10 families like theirs wouldn't be enough to pay for the damages. I nodded. All right, I'll head out as soon as I finish up here. The system's legacy was important, but I had been setting this stage for a long time. I couldn't wait to see what they had to say for themselves. The thought was actually a little exciting. For their apology tour, the Harrisons had brought out the whole family, everyone who was in town. Even Evan was there. He wasn't supposed to come. The family had agreed he should stay home and process everything. But after his breakdown, Evan had insisted on coming. He said I was the innocent one in all of this, that he had lived my life of luxury for 17 years, and that he needed to be there to apologize. His supposed selflessness only made Eleanor and Morgan's hearts ache for him, and their resentment toward me grew even stronger. As for Chloe, her mind was consumed by one terrifying thought, that the boy she was obsessed with and her brother were the same person. The coincidences were too numerous, too specific. It was terrifying, and the fact that her long-lost brother also attended Crestwood University only deepened her dread. Clinging to a final, desperate sliver of hope, Chloe stood with her family under the hot sun, waiting for her brother to appear. When she finally saw that familiar figure emerge, she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. I had come straight from the lab. "You're the ones looking for me? Don't tell me you're going to try to force me to be your son again." The Harrisons were all impeccably dressed, a clear sign of how seriously they were taking this apology. I spotted them immediately in the crowd at the university gate, and of course I saw Chloe, who looked like she'd been struck by lightning. I narrowed my eyes, my expression blank, and let my gaze drift past her to Evan, who looked pale and strained. His smile was forced, Eleanor's eyes were filled with resentment, and Morgan's were openly hostile. Only Richard was smiling, his eyes gleaming with ambition and pride. "How dare you speak like that?" Before Richard could even open his mouth, Morgan snapped. "Is that how you speak to your elders?" I raised an eyebrow, my gaze landing on Richard. "You mean the people who showed up out of the blue, tried to make me their son, and then resorted to threats when I said no?" Morgan's eyes flashed. "What did you just say?" Before she could continue, Richard cut her off. "You be quiet. What did I tell you before we came here? Ethan is more accomplished than anyone in this family. He has the backing of the entire country. If it weren't for our blood connection, we wouldn't even be worthy of speaking to him." Richard shot Morgan a glare before turning back to me, his face wreathed in a sycophantic smile. "You're Ethan, right? I was wrong last time. I came here today specifically to apologize." He then gave Eleanor a pointed look. Eleanor immediately held out a designer bag, forcing a smile. This is just a small token of our sincerity. Please, accept it. I refused without hesitation. That's not necessary. Your little stunt with my apartment didn't really affect me. The university provides me with a villa, so I only stayed there occasionally. I accept your apology, but I don't need your gifts. Richard quickly interjected. No, we insist. This was all my fault. I originally wanted to buy you a proper place, but I was angered by your words and wanted to scare you a little. A man my age shouldn't be getting into spats with a young man. It was all my fault. Richard had clearly rehearsed his lines, and his performance was flawless. I remained unmoved, my expression unchanging as I watched him act. Seeing my lack of reaction, he faltered. Actually, I came today for another reason besides apologizing. I've booked a table at the Oak Room. It's almost lunchtime, we can talk while we eat. I refused without a second thought. No, thank you. If you have something to say it now. The moment I saw Evan, I knew what Richard's true purpose was. He'd found out I was successful and now wanted to claim me as his real son. I wondered how Evan was feeling. Judging by his red-rimmed eyes, he'd been crying. The thought gave me a surge of satisfaction, though I kept my face a perfect mask. Richard was clearly prepared for my resistance. He didn't get angry, just smiled again. Come on, let's just get some lunch. The Oak Room isn't far. I cut him off. No, I'm on a tight schedule. I have things to do. Richard persisted. It's just lunch. It won't take long. I gave him no quarter. But I don't want to have lunch with you. Rejected again and again. Even Richard's practiced composure began to crack. The smile on his face faded. Just as he was about to speak, Morgan piped up. He's just asking you to lunch. What's your problem? Who the hell do you think you are, saying you don't want to eat with us? She yelled, her voice carrying across the busy campus entrance, causing heads to turn. I replied calmly, I never said I was anyone special, but I do have the right to refuse to have lunch with you. With that, I turned and walked away, leaving them no opportunity to say another word. Morgan was furious. Ethan, she screamed after me. Richard was seething, but seeing the crowd of onlookers, he knew this wasn't the place for a scene. He suppressed his rage, shot Morgan a venomous glare, and hissed, We're going home. I was exhausted from spending so many days in the lab, so I started walking back to my villa. On the way, however, I ran into Sophia. I hadn't seen her since the night Chloe drank her under the table. But after only a few days, here she was again, shameless as ever, her face a mask of gentle affection. Ethan, fancy seeing you here. I gave her a cool glance. This is the path to my dorm. She smiled. I know. I came here to wait for you. Being good-looking, I had a lot of admirers on campus. When I first arrived, the news that I was living in a private villa spread like wildfire. The university never gave an official explanation. Needless to say, my arrival caused quite a stir on campus. But people have short attention spans, and I kept a low profile, so eventually the hype died down. Most people knew who I was but didn't pay me much mind, except for a small group who were obsessed with my looks. But after Sophia started her campaign, most of them backed off. Sophia smiled. It's dinner time. Want to grab a bite together? This was her method. She would orbit around me, acting and speaking ambiguously, but never actually making a direct move. I found her annoying, but since she effectively scared off other potential pursuers, I usually tolerated her without being too harsh. That was when I was in a good mood. When I wasn't, I didn't give her the time of day. I refused her bluntly. I'm not hungry. Then I walked right past her. Behind me, Sophia's expression soured. Richard Harrison herded his family home in a fury. The moment he was inside, he smashed several vases and rounded on Morgan. Didn't I tell you to keep your mouth shut? Do you think being his sister gives you some special right? I told you, he's a person of national importance. Who the hell are you to yell at him in front of a crowd? Richard's shouts echoed through the villa, and the staff kept their distance. Evan and Chloe stood by, silent and afraid. Eleanor tried to interject, saying I had been disrespectful, but Richard turned his rage on her. Disrespectful? What right do you have to his respect? Yes, you're his mother, but did you raise him for a single day? He doesn't even know who he is. He's your son. You should have brought him home the moment you found out, not come up with this adoption nonsense to protect someone's feelings. Now look at the mess we're in. He was completely shifting the blame. While it had been Eleanor's idea to bring me back as an adopted son, he had been the one to approve it. He had agreed because he thought a high school dropout was unworthy of the Harrison name and would only bring them shame. More importantly, Evan's value in a strategic marriage alliance would plummet if his true identity were revealed. But now everything was different. My true status was nothing like what his investigation had shown. My potential was on par with, or even greater than, that of his other brilliant children. He had no doubt that, in a few years, I could elevate the Harrison family to unprecedented heights. Of course, that was all contingent on me returning to the family and actually liking them. And right now, it was clear I felt nothing but contempt for them. The thought frustrated him, and his gaze fell on his family with renewed irritation. He angrily berated everyone in the room before storming out of the villa. The moment he was gone, Evan, who had been barely holding it together, finally broke down and began to sob. He didn't understand. He had just taken a short trip abroad. How had everything fallen apart? Why had his life suddenly turned into some cheap novel plot where he was the fake heir? Why had his father's attitude changed so drastically? Had all those years of affection been a lie? And why was this Ethan so important to the country? How could he be so brilliant? Evan clenched his fists, thinking of my behavior earlier. It's okay, he thought. He was the fake heir. He would just let everything go back to the way it was supposed to be. A look of grim determination settled in his eyes. Morgan, Chloe, and Eleanor were all too wrapped up in their own misery to notice the look in Evan's eyes. No one was in a good mood, especially Chloe. The revelation that her dream guy was actually her brother was a devastating blow. The entire Harrison household was in complete and utter chaos. Their misery was my joy. After sending the Harrisons on their way, I went back to my villa and slept soundly. When I woke up, I saw a message from Chloe. "Can we meet?" I raised an eyebrow, then deleted her contact information. Chloe quickly discovered I had deleted her, a realization that cast another shadow over her already shattered heart. She wasn't completely catatonic, but she was close. She didn't know how to process the complex storm of emotions inside her. In truth, she had only met me a few times. It wasn't as if she was deeply in love and couldn't live without me. But the thought that the boy who made her heart race was her own brother, that their bond could have been even stronger than romance, filled her with an unbearable mix of regret and frustration. A boy that amazing, even if they couldn't be lovers, having him as a brother would have been incredible. But now, I had deleted her contact, and the look I gave her was colder than that of a stranger. She was consumed by regret. Even if Evan was important, they shouldn't have tried to bring me back as an adopted son. Even the fraternal twin lie would have been better than this. What had she been thinking? He was her real brother. Hiding in her room, Chloe felt the urge to cry. Just then, the door swung open, and Morgan entered, her face a thundercloud. "What are you doing sulking in here?" she snapped. "Do you have any idea how upset Evan is right now?" Chloe looked up dazedly into Morgan's furious, red-rimmed eyes. "What's wrong with Evan?" Morgan's fists were clenched. "You have the nerve to ask? He's in his room right now, packing his bags. He says he's leaving the family. Mom and I can't stop him. He says he wants to give everything back to Ethan." Chloe's face went pale. "What?" Just then, they heard Eleanor's choked sobs from down the hall. "Evan, what are you doing? You're breaking my heart. You were just a baby when the switch happened. It's not your fault. Please don't go. What will I do if you leave?" After Richard had finished berating the family because of me, Evan had decided to leave. He felt he couldn't stay there any longer. Perhaps if he left, everything would go back to normal. I could return to the family, and his father's problems would be solved. The switch at birth wasn't his fault, but he had been the beneficiary, living the life and using the resources that should have been mine. Even though I seemed to be doing well for myself, he still felt like a thief. Evan's voice was choked with tears. "Mom, I'll come back and visit, promise. But right now, the only way for things to get back to normal is for me to leave. Then Ethan can come home without any complications, and he won't blame you. He's your real son. He's the one who..." He became so overwhelmed with sadness that he couldn't speak. Just then, the door burst open, and Chloe and Morgan rushed in. "Yes, Ethan is a Harrison," Chloe cried. "But you're my brother too. What are we supposed to do if you leave?" The two sisters pleaded with him, their faces etched with pain. Evan lowered his head, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Eleanor rushed to embrace him. "Blood doesn't mean everything. In my heart, you are my son. If you leave, what will I do? Think about me, please," Morgan added anxiously. "You're the only brother I have. I don't care how brilliant anyone else is. They mean nothing to me." She shot a pointed look at Chloe. Chloe pursed her lips and sighed. "You're my only brother too, Evan. Please don't go. If you leave, this family will fall apart." I was important to her, yes. Just moments before, she had been wishing they had welcomed me as their true son from the start. But seeing Evan so heartbroken, she couldn't help but take his side. She wanted him to stay. It didn't matter if I never came back to the Harrison family. I was doing fine on my own, and I didn't seem to want to come back anyway. Chloe suppressed her own feelings of unease and loss. Seeing the genuine love from the three of them, Evan was at a loss for words. It took him a long moment to choke out, "But Dad wants Ethan to come home. If I don't leave, he might not come back, and Dad will blame all of you." Chloe took a deep breath, her expression determined. "It's okay. Ethan will come back. If I have to, I'll go and beg him." Eleanor wiped her tears. "I'll go too. I'll tell him the truth and beg him to come home. I'll get on my knees if I have to. Just please, Evan, don't go. Even if he never comes back, I don't want you to leave. In my heart, you are my only son." Evan finally broke. "Mom!" He threw his arms around her, and they both wept. Beside them, Morgan and Chloe finally let out a breath of relief. I, of course, knew nothing of the drama unfolding at the Harrison estate. After a good night's sleep, I was back in the lab working on the spatial pouch. The research had reached a critical point. I still couldn't find a substitute for the final stabilizing agent. I had spent the last few days testing dozens of plants with powerful adhesive properties, but nothing worked. The research had hit a wall. I began to suspect my entire approach was wrong. After all, adhesion wasn't the only way to reinforce something. The leakage might not be a problem of instability, but a literal hole in the spatial fabric. I gathered my 4 advisors to brainstorm and get their opinions. Dr. Reed thought for a moment. If adhesives aren't working, what about a thread? I had used an early prototype of the pouch to get into Crestwood. That version was even more unstable, with multiple issues besides the leakage. Over the past 2 years, I had fixed all of them except this one. Dr. Reed and the others were actively searching for a solution. "Ethan, look," another advisor, Dr. Ross, said, holding up a small cloth pouch with a needle and thread. "This pouch has a hole in it. If you put something inside, it will fall out. But if we patch the hole, the pouch becomes secure." For 2 years, I had been solely responsible for the project, solving every problem myself. They were eager to help. I took the pouch from him, my mind racing. A thread? It made a strange kind of sense. But the kind of thread needed to patch a hole in spacetime wouldn't be ordinary. Back in my villa, I went online to research the strongest known fibers. The internet offered a wide range of bizarre answers, but 2 materials stood out: the silk of the Darwin's bark spider and a synthetic nanocrystal fiber. Both were derived from spider silk proteins. The former was the toughest natural fiber known to man, while the latter was a bioengineered fusion of 2 spider proteins produced by bacteria. Both were among the toughest fibers ever recorded. I sent the names of both materials to Dr. Reed. She replied that the lab didn't have either on hand, and it would take about a week to procure them. The experiment was urgent, but a week's delay was acceptable. The thread was a promising breakthrough, and I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Now, for the next week, I could focus entirely on the Harrisons. I had a feeling they would be back to see me very soon, and this time they would be forced to tell me the truth. Sure enough, just 1 day later, they were back. To be precise, it was Eleanor with her 3 children in tow. This time, she went straight for the nuclear option, declaring that she was my biological mother and that we needed to talk. I had to laugh. "My biological mother? Last time, you said I was the son of your husband's savior. How did I suddenly become your son?" My eyes were flat, but a sarcastic smile played on my lips. Eleanor's lips tightened, but before she could speak, Evan stepped forward, his face full of apology. "I'm sorry. The reason my mother said that before was because of me." He took a deep breath. "It's a long story. If you don't mind, maybe we could go to a cafe and I can explain everything from the beginning." I found this hilarious. In my past life, whenever Evan put on that pitiful expression, Morgan and the others would immediately attack me, telling me not to covet what wasn't mine, that I was unworthy. It wasn't just the sisters, either. Eleanor doted on Evan more than anyone, treating him like he was made of glass. But that was the last life. I glanced at Eleanor now, at her expression of suppressed anger and pity for Evan, and I let out a soft sigh. "Fine, I can give you half an hour. I'm on a tight schedule." Morgan and Eleanor were clearly unhappy, but given my current status, they were powerless. They found a small cafe nearby. It was clean, but for Eleanor and Evan, who were used to luxury, the small private room felt cramped and suffocating. I sat down across from the 4 of them and crossed my legs. "Sit down and tell me what's going on," I said, tilting my chin toward Evan. Even though he was standing, my posture completely dominated the space, and the 3 Harrison women frowned in unison at my clear disdain for him. Despite my hostile attitude, Evan dutifully recounted the entire story. He explained that Eleanor had wanted to bring me back as an adopted son because she was afraid the truth would devastate him. Her plan was to bring me into the family first, then slowly reveal the truth and restore our proper places. He claimed they never expected things to get so out of hand. He even defended Richard's earlier actions. Dad didn't mean to be cruel. He just didn't want you to be out on your own, and he was afraid you'd get into trouble. I had to admit, Evan was a good speaker. His expression, his tone, everything about him screamed sincerity. If I hadn't been so thoroughly destroyed by them in my past life, I might have actually been moved. He always played the innocent victim so perfectly. Seeing the looks of Gandong on the faces of the Harrison women, I raised an eyebrow. So, I should be thanking you for all this? Evan immediately backpedaled. That's not what I meant. I just mean this is all my fault. If you're gonna blame anyone, blame me. Don't blame Mom and Dad. They were just trying to protect me. Of course, I know what they did was unfair to you. You're their real son after all. But they're victims in this too. They raised me as their own son for 17 years. All the love they gave me was the love that should have been yours. You can't just erase 17 years of love and family. They couldn't let me go, but they couldn't abandon you either. That's why they told that lie. As Evan spoke, Eleanor couldn't stop the tears from streaming down her face. Even if she hadn't seen herself that way before, Evan's words painted her as a tragic, noble figure, and she began to believe it. Morgan and Chloe were moved as well, completely forgetting their earlier contempt for the brother they had never met. All their previous insults, calling me a lowlife and a punk, declaring I was unworthy of being their brother, all of it evaporated in the face of Evan's heartfelt, revisionist history. I looked at Evan. Listening to you, it sounds like I have no choice but to forgive you all. Seeing the visible relief on his face, I changed my tone. Let's put aside whether or not I'm actually related to your mom and dad. The moment they found out the truth, their first instinct wasn't to learn anything about my life, but to figure out how to protect your feelings. Don't you find that a little ridiculous? My adoptive mother died when I was 7. If I hadn't been smart enough to excel in school, where would I be now? And just because I refused to become your family's adopted pet, you resorted to threats to force my hand. Now you're trying to spin it as you being unable to let me go, afraid I'd lose my way. Is this how you keep your son from losing his way? Not by telling him the truth, but by cutting off all his options, crushing his dignity, and clipping his wings, forcing him into your home as an adopted son. It's like training a dog, beating it into submission and then offering a treat, expecting it to be grateful. If that's your parents' idea of not letting go, then I feel sorry for anyone they get attached to. The memories of my past life made my gaze turn to ice. I looked at Evan and stood up. And you are the biggest hypocrite of them all. I must have been bored out of my mind to waste half an hour on people like you. With that, I turned and walked out. A flicker of panic crossed Evan's face. It's not like that. He reached out to grab my arm. I stopped dead in my tracks and turned back to face them. My almond eyes narrowed with a clear warning. Don't come looking for me again. Otherwise, I might just have another chat with my advisor. And next time, I won't be so forgiving. I dropped that bombshell and left without a backward glance. Evan stood frozen, staring after me. How could this have happened? He had been so sincere. He truly wanted to give Ethan his life back, and every word he'd said had come from the heart. He turned to look at the 3 Harrison women. Chloe looked lost, Eleanor's eyes were filled with disappointment, and Morgan was staring in the direction I had gone with a look of pure venom. I had no idea Morgan was planning to come after me, but even if I had, I wouldn't have cared. With my current resources and status, crushing a family like the Harrisons would be child's play. The only reason I let them continue their pathetic dance was to prolong their suffering. I knew the feeling of powerlessness all too well from my past life. This time, it was their turn to experience it. I wanted them to watch as everything they held dear collapsed, shattered, and slipped through their fingers like sand, until nothing was left. Thinking of the looks on their faces just now, my mood soared. I pulled out my phone and called Leo. Leo, you free? I arranged to meet up with Leo. Eleanor hadn't told Richard about her little visit with the children. She had been afraid that if it failed, he would only get angrier. Turned out she was right to be afraid. The sun was bright, but Eleanor's heart was cold. She couldn't understand how she could have given birth to such a son. She had explained everything so clearly, yet I refused to show an ounce of compassion. She was still my mother, wasn't she? Even if she hadn't raised me, the pain of childbirth was a bond that could never be broken. Just as Eleanor was wallowing in self-pity, she heard her daughter's voice. Chloe, take Mom and Evan home. I have an errand to run. Eleanor looked up at Morgan and saw a flash of pure malice in her eyes. A jolt of fear went through her. What kind of errand? Eleanor knew her daughter well enough to know that Morgan was far from the gentle person she appeared to be. In reality, she was cold and ruthless, with no respect for the law or human life. When she was 15, Evan had gotten into a scuffle at school and bumped his head. Not long after, the other boy involved had a fall at school that broke both his legs, leaving him in a wheelchair for life. There had been countless similar incidents, until Richard finally found out and gave her a harsh punishment that made her more discreet. But you can't turn a wolf into a lamb just by beating it. Suppressing her nature had only made her more vicious. Morgan smiled sweetly. I just have some business to take care of, Mom. Don't worry. Everyone in the family except for Evan knew what she was capable of. Chloe's brow furrowed. Don't do anything stupid, Morgan. He's still. Morgan cut her off. What are you trying to say? What could I possibly do? In Chloe's heart, Evan was more important, but I had carved out a small space for myself as well. She didn't want Evan to leave, but she didn't want me to get hurt either. Chloe glanced at Evan, who looked completely lost, then pulled Morgan aside. She lowered her voice. He's a person of national importance. If you do anything to him, the government will come after you. Morgan sneered. From the sound of it, you seem to know that ungrateful brat. Too bad he doesn't seem to give a damn about you. Chloe's face darkened. I've said my piece. Just be careful you don't get in over your head. Morgan pushed her away. Mind your own business. She waved to Evan and her mother, then turned and walked away. Chloe watched her go, her brow furrowed with worry as she remembered all the terrible things Morgan had done in the past. Just as she was about to go after her, Evan's voice came from behind. Chloe, what did Morgan say to you? Her anger suddenly vanished. She turned and met his clear, innocent eyes. It was nothing, she thought to herself. Forget it. Mom didn't say anything. Ethan was a person of national importance. Even Morgan wouldn't do anything too drastic, right? Chloe sighed, pushing aside her feelings of guilt and unease. Let's go. I'll take you home. My new condo was over 1,000 square feet, with 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. I was very happy with the design plans Leo had drawn up. I took him out to lunch and then left the entire renovation in his capable hands. In the afternoon, I went to a boxing gym on Oak Street. It was dark by the time I left. I grabbed a quick bite and headed back to campus. And who should I run into but the ever-persistent Sophia? She was wearing a pure white dress that seemed to glow under the streetlights, making her look like some kind of ethereal fairy. Ethan, just getting back? I was in a decent mood, so I just nodded. Yeah. She fell into step beside me. Want to go grab a late-night snack? I refused without a second thought. No thanks. Sophia seemed to have expected this answer, and her beautiful face showed no sign of disappointment. She paused for a moment, then changed the subject completely. Ethan, have you run into some kind of trouble recently? I turned to look at her. What's that supposed to mean? Her face was a mask of concern. Well, some people were asking about you today. They didn't look like students. From the way they were talking, it sounded like they were up to no good. You should be careful. If you need to go off campus in the next few days, you should let me come with you. My interest was suddenly piqued. What did they ask? Having spent a lifetime with the Harrisons, I knew them inside and out. Eleanor's favoritism for Evan was bone deep. Richard was driven by nothing but profit. Chloe was selfish and arrogant, her malice plain to see. And Morgan, she had no regard for family or human life. She didn't strike often, but when she did, she was ruthless. The memory of my past life made my hand clench at my side, but I quickly forced it to relax. This wasn't my past life. This time, the Harrisons couldn't hurt me. In fact, my very existence would throw their lives into chaos, and they would slowly lose everything they held dear. If I had to guess, this was Morgan's handiwork. After all, thanks to my careful manipulation, Chloe had developed some affection for me. While it wasn't enough to displace Evan in her heart, it was enough to temper her usually explosive temper, at least where I was concerned. The fact that she had remained silent after how I treated her family, and especially Evan, proved that my efforts had not been in vain. Her feelings for me were complicated. She cared. So even if she wouldn't help me, she wouldn't actively move against me either. That left Morgan. I wondered what she would try, given my status as a person of national importance. The thought was actually a little exciting. A brilliant idea for revenge suddenly came to me, and I let out a soft laugh. My sudden smile must have seemed strange, but being handsome, it had the effect of momentarily stunning Sophia. She quickly recovered and launched into a detailed, and rather long-winded, account of what had happened that afternoon. The gist of it was this: 3 men had shown up that afternoon asking questions about me. They wanted to know where I lived, who my friends were, my favorite hangouts, and my daily schedule. They were clearly not students. They had approached a friend of Sophia's, and that friend, knowing Sophia's interest in me, had immediately reported it to her. At this point in the story, Sophia couldn't resist showing off her social connections. She smiled, the picture of gentle concern. I know almost everyone at Crestwood. Don't worry, Ethan. I won't let anyone hurt you. Well, thank you, Sophia. I had a feeling she wasn't telling me the whole truth. Given my importance on campus, Morgan wouldn't have made such a clumsy move without knowing the full picture, at least not this quickly. The most likely scenario was that Sophia and Morgan had formed a temporary alliance. But it didn't matter. Any plot they could hatch was nothing but a paper tiger in the face of true power. Sophia offered to walk me back to my villa again, and again I refused. Since Morgan had made her move, it was my turn to respond. So, let's try to guess her plan. Sophia's story was likely a mix of truth and lies. Morgan had indeed sent people to gather information on me. That was the obvious part of the plan. The secret part was her collaboration with Sophia. Sophia was a hypocrite. She liked me but would never admit it, preferring to scheme behind the scenes, much like Morgan. Their plan was probably some kind of damsel in distress scenario, where Sophia would get to play the hero. But Morgan was far more vicious. She wouldn't go to all this trouble just to help Sophia land a date. She would have her own plan to ruin me completely, using Sophia as a pawn to keep her own hands clean. With that, I knew what to expect. For the next 3 days, I stayed on campus, and every day Sophia asked me out to eat. I refused each time until the 3rd day. She messaged me saying her friends had found the 3 men who were asking about me, and that I should meet her at the main dining hall. I agreed. When she saw me, she said, "You haven't left campus at all these past few days, have you? Maybe that's why they came back." The dining hall was huge, and Sophia led me to a secluded table in the corner. She seemed completely open, choosing a public place like the dining hall for our meeting. If this had been my past life, I might have actually been fooled by her act. "They went to my friend again," she continued, "and offered her a lot of money. They said they had to get you off campus, no matter what. My friend has them detained right now. Do you want to go see them? But there's no rush. You probably haven't eaten yet. We can go after we eat and find out who's behind this." In that instant, I knew exactly what Sophia's game was, and I could guess Morgan's plan as well. I smiled. "All right, let's eat first, then." Since I was supposedly the target of a plot, I couldn't appear to have much of an appetite. I picked at my food, and then left with Sophia to go to where the men were being held, a remote, abandoned warehouse on the edge of campus. The closer we got to the warehouse, the more deserted the area became. After walking for half an hour, the only sounds were our own footsteps and breathing. I didn't rush her, but I let a hint of unease show on my face. Sophia told me not to be afraid. "If you're really scared, you can hold on to my sleeve." I refused again. "No thanks, I'm not scared." She didn't press the issue. After a few more minutes of walking, we arrived at the warehouse. I glanced at the security camera mounted on the corner of the building, then at Sophia, just in time to see a flicker of excitement in her eyes. She was excited for the little drama she had planned. How foolish. Sensing my gaze, she turned and smiled at me. "Well, we're here. They're inside. All 3 of them are tied up, so they can't cause any trouble. You can ask them whatever you want." I smiled back. "Great. Thanks so much, Sophia." I followed her into the warehouse. The moment we were both inside, the heavy metal door slammed shut behind us. Sophia frowned, and then her eyes went wide with shock. I took in the scene before me. The space was about 600 square feet, filled with old, broken gym equipment. 2 large men with bleached blonde hair stood by the door. 2 other people were tied to broken chairs, their mouths gagged. When they saw Sophia and me, their eyes filled with despair. 3 other men stood with their backs to us. They turned slowly at the sound of the door closing, their eyes landing on me. "So, you're here," one of them said. They were all in their early 20s, but their eyes held a chilling malice. They were clearly bad news. "What is going on?" Sophia wasn't an idiot. She realized instantly that she'd been double-crossed. A flash of anger crossed her face, but she quickly composed herself. "What do you think you're doing? You're on a university campus. Are you trying to get arrested?" She pulled out her phone to call the police, but a man with sharp, angular features snatched it from her hand. He sneered. "You think you're calling the police? Well, I suppose you can call them after we're finished here." "Ha ha ha ha." Sophia was furious and humiliated. "Do you have any idea who my father is? If you so much as touch a hair on our heads, my father will hunt you to the ends of the earth and make you pay 1,000 times over." "Oh, we're not going to touch you," a round-faced man said, his eyes fixing on me. He grinned. Our target was always him. In an instant, every eye in the warehouse was on me. Sophia knew what was coming and stepped in front of me. "Don't you dare touch him." The moment she moved, the sharp-featured man struck her shoulder with a metal pipe. "Who the hell do you think you are?" she cried out in pain. In that split second, another one of his cronies shoved her aside. The man's eyes landed on me. I spoke calmly, unhurriedly. "Morgan Harrison sent you, didn't she?" I hadn't said a word until now. I had anticipated this exact scenario. Over the years, I had spent every point earned from the system's tasks on items from its store that would make me stronger. The store had everything imaginable, for a price. In 10 years, I had only managed to afford a manual for a solar body tempering technique, 10 points of agility, and a flame-enchanted whip. I would have loved to purchase superpowers or cultivation manuals, but the string of zeros in their prices was daunting. I had acquired the solar body tempering manual 4 years ago, and it had cost me all my points. The strength and agility boosts had each taken a full year to save up for. My next goal was a cultivation manual, though with only a few thousand points, it was a distant dream. Just then, the system chimed in my mind. "Villainous supporting character awakening. Host is in a state of immediate danger. Neutralize the current threat to receive 3 rejuvenation elixirs and 20 points." The system hadn't issued a task in a long time, not even during my confrontations with the Harrisons. I had assumed it was because I hadn't collected the final scroll fragment. I never expected to get a task now. I was both stunned and pleasantly surprised. Just then, the sharp-featured man spoke. "Morgan who? What are you talking about? Don't try to stall." He stepped forward and reached for me. In the next instant, I shot out my hand, grabbed his wrist, twisted it sharply, and sent him flying with a powerful kick. With a loud crash, he flew back several feet, landing hard on the ground and knocking over a rack of equipment, his face contorted in pain. No one had expected me to fight back. The round-faced man's expression darkened, and he swung a pipe directly at my head. At the same time, the 2 men behind me closed in. Sophia, it turned out, wasn't completely useless. Seeing me fight back, she scrambled to her feet, grabbed a peeling baseball bat from the floor, and positioned herself behind me to block any attacks from the rear. "Get out and call the police if you get a chance," she yelled. I was surprised to see she had some fight in her. I kicked the round-faced man in the stomach, then executed a side flip, kicking another attacker in the back and following through with a dislocating joint lock. Finally, I turned to help Sophia, taking down her 2 assailants with a quick series of strikes. The entire fight was fluid and efficient. In less than 2 minutes, all 5 of them were on the ground, groaning in pain. Sophia stood there, clutching the bat, her hands trembling. Her face was a mixture of shock and utter disbelief. She looked at me as if she had never seen me before. I ignored the moans from the men on the floor and calmly pulled out my phone, dialing Dr. Reed. "Professor, I've run into a bit of trouble," I said, my voice perfectly even. "I've been cornered in the abandoned gym warehouse on campus. The other party had malicious intent. Yes, it's connected to the Harrison family, the ones who tried to adopt me." Dr. Reed was silent for 2 seconds. Then her voice came through the line, calm but radiating a barely suppressed fury. "Stay where you are. Protect yourself, and don't let anyone leave. I'm handling this now." I hung up and glanced at the stunned Sophia. "Now," I said coolly, "we can talk. Who put you up to this? What did Morgan Harrison offer you?" The color drained from Sophia's face. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. The pride and cunning in her eyes were gone, replaced by pure, unadulterated fear. She had never imagined that not only could I fight, but that I was so perceptive I had seen through her entire scheme from the start. She couldn't finish her sentence. Less than 10 minutes later, the warehouse's heavy iron door was wrenched open from the outside. It wasn't campus security. It was a team of men in plain clothes who moved with the chilling efficiency of trained professionals. They moved quickly, securing the scene, separating the thugs on the floor from the 2 who had been tied up. One of them approached me respectfully. "Researcher Harrison, are you unharmed? Professor Reed sent us to handle the situation." In that moment, Sophia finally understood. The power I wielded was far beyond anything her wealthy DC family's petty schemes could ever touch. This wasn't a feud between families. It was a confrontation between her and the entire apparatus of the state. The fall of the House of Harrison was even faster than I had anticipated. Morgan was arrested in her bedroom the very next morning. She maintained her arrogant demeanor with the investigators, right up until they presented her with a federal arrest warrant. The charge was endangering the security of a nationally protected asset. The charge, something she had never even heard of, caused her to break down completely. She, who had always believed her family's money and power could solve any problem, had provoked a force she wasn't even worthy of acknowledging. In the end, her various crimes were tallied up, and she received a long prison sentence, destined to spend her best years behind bars. The investigation into Morgan was like pulling a loose thread that unraveled the entire family. Federal investigators followed the trail and easily uncovered decades of corruption within Heiress Holdings. Massive tax evasion, illegal bidding practices, and political bribery. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. The man who was once the richest in Seaview City went from business titan to federal inmate in a storm of media coverage. Heiress Holdings stock plummeted, and the company was eventually seized and liquidated. Richard Harrison's tears in the courtroom earned him no sympathy. When Eleanor learned that her husband and daughter were in prison and the family fortune was gone, she had a complete mental breakdown. Unable to accept reality, she spent her days muttering, "My Evan, my son," and was eventually committed to a psychiatric hospital. The Harrison empire had crumbled. Chloe saw the news from overseas. She stared blankly at the familiar yet strange name on the screen, Ethan Harrison. The dream guy she had fallen for at first sight, the brother she had scorned and insulted, they were one and the same. The lowlife she had imagined was a national treasure. The family she had been so proud of was a rotten den of criminals. The immense irony and a tidal wave of regret consumed her. She deleted all her contacts and began a simple, difficult life of penance in a foreign country, working odd jobs to survive. As for Evan, losing everything was, in a way, a rebirth. He was innocent of all the family's crimes. After the Harrisons' fall from grace, he refused all offers of pity, worked his way through school, and eventually enrolled in a state university. He was no longer the spoiled fake heir, just an ordinary person working hard to build a life. Though his heart ached, he also felt a sense of peace and freedom he had never known before. The cancerous tumor that was the Harrison family, which had festered in my heart for years, had finally been excised. Justice had been served, swift and absolute. At the same time, my research reached its final, critical breakthrough. The nanocrystal spider silk fiber that Dr. Reed had procured perfectly solved the pouch's stability issues. As I inscribed the final rune, the small pouch in my hand began to emit a soft, warm light. I placed a heavy textbook inside, and it floated securely within the pocket dimension, with no signs of leakage. Ding! Congratulations, host, on completing the final mission, the birth of the spatial pouch. All scroll fragments have been collected. Final legacy unlocking. The system's voice echoed in my mind one last time. Then, an unimaginable torrent of information flooded my consciousness. The complete theory of energy technology. From controlled nuclear fusion to the extraction of zero-point energy, this knowledge had the power to reshape the world. The system had fulfilled its purpose, dissolving into pure information and becoming a part of me. I entrusted my shares in Lunar Gems to Leo, and together we established the Harrison Miller Science and Technology Fund. Using my vast fortune to support brilliant young scientists who lacked resources, we became the closest of friends and partners. And into my life, an unexpected ray of light began to shine. After the incident at the warehouse, Sophia came to find me. She had dropped all her games and pretenses. She offered me a sincere, heartfelt apology for her past vanity, her scheming, and her foolishness. "I'm so sorry," she said, her eyes clear and honest. "I was always so focused on how to win you over that I never tried to actually get to know you. That night, I saw a completely different side of you, and I saw how small and petty I had been. Ethan, I like you, not because you're a genius or because of the power you have, but just because of who you are. If you're willing, I'd like to start over." The moment she had stepped up to protect my back in that warehouse, a crack had formed in the ice around my heart. Now, looking at her open, honest face, I realized I didn't dislike her at all. Perhaps, after all the vengeance and retribution, my heart needed a place to finally rest. I nodded. Okay. Our relationship grew quickly, built on a foundation of simple sincerity. She would stay with me in the lab late into the night, bringing me snacks, and when I hit a wall with my research, she would just sit quietly nearby, offering her silent, comforting presence. 1 year later, our wedding was held in the auditorium of the scenic, private research facility the government had built for me. There were no lavish decorations, only bright, floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out onto the lush, green mountains. Dr. Reed and my other 3 advisors sat in the front row like proud family members, their eyes filled with warmth. Leo, my best man, stood beside me and gave my shoulder a firm, reassuring squeeze. Then, the large doors at the back of the hall opened, and Sophia appeared, radiant in a white gown, holding a simple bouquet of lilies of the valley as she walked toward me. Her face glowed with a happiness that chased away the last shadows from my heart. I stepped forward and took her hand. The officiant's voice was warm and steady. When it was my turn for the vows, I looked into her eyes and spoke softly. I used to think my life was a thorny path of vengeance, with no end and no light. But then you appeared, like a brave star, and broke into my dark world. Sophia, thank you for showing me that beyond the clouds, there is a brilliant, clear sky. Her eyes welled with tears, and her voice was thick with emotion when she spoke. Ethan, I was first drawn to your brilliance, and I was also intimidated by your darkness. But now, I just want you to know that whether you're a genius or just a man, I love all of you, the person who frowns over a difficult problem and smiles at a silly joke. I promise to spend my life protecting the warmth I've found in you. We exchanged rings and kissed, surrounded by the applause and blessings of our friends and family. Sunlight streamed through the massive windows, bathing us in its warm, bright glow. In that moment, my life had truly, gloriously begun anew.